Welcome to the Fandom Cookbooks panel for Council Room 2021, and Happy New Year to everyone. Many of us have spent a lot of 2020 during our quarantine cooking and baking, and for some people it's the first time that they've actually attempted any of that. And right now there's a plethora of cookbooks for fandom out there, so we're going to discuss, are they worth it and which ones are the best? This panel will have something for everyone, from the novice cook to elaborate meals, from no cookbooks to having a collection of cookbooks, what to make next, which books to buy and which ones to skip. We've got you covered. So to begin with, I am Mary Wilke, the owner of Wayward Nerd, which is an online travel company geared towards nerds. And my background with food from the professional side is when I was working with AAA for about 20 years, I evaluated restaurants as part of my job writing the tour books. And I would evaluate about 210 restaurants a year. And then from the fandom side, or the fandom realm, with Wayward Nerd and just personally, my fandom cooking involves watch parties, especially this last year. I did a lot of watch parties, both just for myself and when I would watch parties through Facebook with my friends, of course, socially distant. And we'll talk a little bit more about watch parties a little bit later in the panel. Then also I do fandom cooking for road trips, and I will talk about that a little bit more on a different panel, which at Council Room here, which is road trip supernatural style. As for cookbooks, I have a personal collection of over 50, some are vintage, but as far as the fandom cookbooks, I really only have about 4. One is Supernatural, Harry Potter, and then I have 2 Minnesota Twins cookbooks. But I will tell you that this panel will make you hungry. So who better to be on the panel with me than Mr. Consweet himself, the person that feeds us while we're at Council Room. So Nick, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your cooking?
Hello, I'm Nick Raden. I run the Consweet at Council Room. And some of you may not recognize me without the apron or putting out chips and pizza, but unfortunately this year I don't get to do that for you, but I do love talking about food. I've been cooking for a very long time. I don't have any necessary professional experience besides the requisite time working in restaurants as a teen, but I do a lot of cooking, obviously, for Consweet. I do a lot of cooking, actually all the cooking at home. Well, in the before times, we used to host a ton of themed parties we did Star Wars and Game of Thrones and just all sorts of fandom themed parties with fandom themed cooking. And that had us buying quite a few different fandom cookbooks. And I've married into apparently quite a few fandoms. So we have a lot of fandom cookbooks.
So let's get into a little bit about what fandom cooking is and why we do it. Basically, fandom is essentially the love of a thing. We all have this thing that we love and we want to be a part of it. And so through fandom cooking, especially if you're doing like a watch party or if you're doing a road trip, then it's us trying to experience adventure along with them. One real quick example of this is, it's something I haven't done yet. It's something I'm planning, which is I want to go to Central Park and listen to the Melody Malone audiobook read by River Song herself, and have myself a little picnic. And so I even have the bag that I bought for my road trip. So of course, the first thing I start to show, I don't have in a spot that was easy for me. Winter bag that Target had, and it's vinyl, and so it's the perfect picnic bag. But it's council, or it's TARDIS colors. So anyways, the idea of fandom cooking is to extend the joy of the event. And as far as the history of that, I think some of it goes back a while, but most of us can, well, most of us my age, you're much younger, Nick, than I am, will remember in the 70s, our mother putting a little drop of blue food coloring in the milk so that we'd have blue milk, just like Luke Skywalker. And then of course, also my mother did green eggs and ham. And she put a little green food coloring in the green eggs, and we had a big Dr. Seuss lunch one day, and those types of things. Also, probably the more on point fandom cooking would be tailgating, and that has to do, with sports. And it's also them extending, not just doing the adventure along with someone, but extending it. And we tend to do that as well. We have those after shows, and and even Sex and the City, they used to do a lot of watch parties with the cocktails and stuff. But with tailgating, they've really extended that to hours and hours beforehand, and it's all about the food. So the title of this panel is Fandom Cookbooks. So let's get into the Fandom Cookbooks. I will just show you the two that I have, which is Supernatural. I actually use this book. It's the official book. And there are quite a few things in here that I have made. And then the other one I have the twins fundraising ones. And there is one recipe in here by Tori Hunter that's fabulous for a very easy lemon pie that I've done. And then I have the Harry Potter cookbook, which you have this also, Nick, right? I actually don't like this one. I don't cook very much from it, but it's fun paging through this one. So you have many more, and I can see over your shoulder, you also have a Doctor Who one.
Oh, yes. And it's this is a good segue into how I feel actually quite strongly about a lot of these cookbooks, and just sort of my general feelings about cookbooks is they sort of fall into two camps. And we've got the themed cookbooks, which are real cookbooks that anybody can follow, but they follow the specific theme of the fandom, or kitschy, which is just they're not good. I guess that's the short way of saying it. And so something like I actually made a recipe from this just this week, and it's definitely British cooking, but the British cooking can sometimes be a little bit notorious for not being particularly great, but it definitely is a nice themed cookbook. It's got actual recipes, it's got step-by-step instructions. However, it lacks pictures. We eat with our eyes first, and I find pictures to be very important. But then we also have, unfortunately, kitschy, which is, Wilke cookies. It's got great pictures, step-by-step instructions, and they're not good. We've got Yoda soda. We've got, things like that where it's definitely themed around a fandom. It's got pictures. It looks like a cookbook. The recipes are just not up to par. And unfortunately, this is one of them. I'm sorry, folks. It's just this particular unofficial one is not terribly good. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of love for Doctor Who. There's love of food. It's just not very well done. And so it's dedicated more towards the the love of the fandom and not necessarily proficiency in cooking, which is not necessarily their fault, but we're here to make some food.
So with that one, Dining with the Doctor, is that one that you would classify as skip, or is that one that you would say is good to just sit in your chair and read?
Honestly, I would say skip. Its
Okay.
main focus is a dish for every single episode of the new series up until season 6.
Okay.
And so trying to get a recipe or a dish from every single episode is tough. They went through a lot of work. It's got some pictures, it's got instructions, but it's from someone who's not either a professional cook or is not going through the rigor that a lot of these other cookbooks do, where it needs to be tested, it needs to be tried, it needs to be consistently reproducible.
Right.
And so something like, I would unfortunately have to classify as kitschy. But then we have other cookbooks where I would consider theme, like the Game of Thrones cookbook. Now this, although it lacks pictures, and I know that sounds sort of elementary, but it's nice to have what I would consider to be either a guiding or aspirational goal in a cookbook. But something like this is completely dedicated to theme. When they say that they're having Robert Baratheon's boiled pig's feet, the first ingredient, pig's feet. Littlefinger's lamprey pie tells you what to do with 2 pounds of eel. Like everything in here, I feel confident that I could make following these instructions.
So that book is method. That's a method fandom for the people that like really to go full on method fandom.
Exactly. And that's what's really great for things like cooking. Like that's why we got them for like all these parties and stuff, is because like we want to create this experience and extend our enjoyment of it, and we do that with food.
So now Doctor Who has some iconic foods, but not necessarily the best cookbooks. So the iconic foods would be, of course, fish fingers and custard. There is, the Jelly Bellies, Souffle Girl, and Jammy Dodgers, which one year for Christmas, I made that back when Doctor Who Christmas specials used to be on Christmas. I made Jammy Dodgers for all of my friends that live across the country, and I sent them all. But I didn't do it with a fandom cookbook. I tend to do a lot of fandom cooking, but I do it where I just create it because you saw it in the show. I didn't need a Doctor Who Jammy Dodger. I needed Jammy Dodgers. So I found the recipe online. It was Americanized, which is good as far as the measurements, but it is a British recipe. And then I used cookie cutters that are for Linzer, which is a type of sandwich cookie with the jelly inside. But you can't use that recipe for Jammy Dodgers because it's a different type of cookie. Jammy Dodgers are a shortbread cookie, and this is more of a softer cookie. But that's how I did those cookies. And then the souffle, I think you don't need to have a Doctor Who recipe for that. I think you could have any souffle. I'll be honest, I am not a fan of souffles, so I have not done any of the souffles for Souffle Girl. And then, of course, I have my teacup because we all know tea, and I forget there you go. Which episode it is that tea saves the Doctor. I mean, it's a Christmas episode, but I can't tell you the name of the episode or what year and all of that. There are other iconic foods that go with fandom, not necessarily Doctor Who. There are other shows that are very specific food oriented and drink oriented, with James Bond with all of the cocktails, which, believe me, a James Bond watch party is fun, especially if you're all in quarantine separately and you're all watching, because Pluto TV now has a James Bond channel, and you're making the cocktails. By the end, you're really happy. And then also for me, Brokenwood Mysteries, Mrs. Marlowe's cheese rolls is a character in itself. It's in every episode, starting with season 2, episode 1, all the way through the 6th season, 7 seasons. And then Psych I'll talk about a little bit later. But Psych has so many iconic foods, which is like the cinnamon pie is a whole episode, and fries cuatro queso dos fritos. Most people have tried to recreate that. And pineapples, and always in every episode there's a pineapple. Tacos and jerk chickens. So Psych watch parties are a lot of fun. And then I'm going to turn it over to Nick to talk about Downton Abbey, because it's all about the food. I don't think either one of us have the Downton Abbey cookbooks, but they are highly rated. And I have looked at them. There's 4. They call them the Downton Abbey Cookery Library. And they come highly rated. So why don't you talk a little bit about your Downton Abbey food watching experiences?
Yeah, so when we had gotten together before this just to kind of just talk a little bit of shop, so we're not sort of reinventing the wheel when it came to this panel. And Mary's actually mentioned, she's like, I know all about these cookbooks, this and that. And it's like, I've never actually watched it. I'm like, it's funny you should say that, because I've never intended to watch it. It was something that my wife Amber had watched, but it's such a good show. And it's a really good show because, having never intended to watch it, I've probably seen most of it. And it's one of those shows where we're walking by, and then I glance over, and then it's 3 episodes later. And the show completely absorbs you. And they do that by just making you care about this world of these, they're aristocrats, but it focuses so much on the day-to-day and the help and the food. And before you'll quickly go from what is a Downton Abbey and why should I care to she absolutely cannot serve that food on that dish to them. That is a deal breaker. And the way they focus on the food, they get completely into it, and it's completely natural, and you see how they're making this food. Everything is presented both realistically and deliciously. The show will make you hungry. Trying to get their groceries on time, fresh, and everything cooked to order is such an integral part of the show that these are definitely on my Amazon wish list.
And I noticed Alamo Draft House in Woodbury. I've been to Alamo Draft Houses like all over the United States. But they have these great, so it doesn't really matter where you're coming in from. So I should say to those people who are watching this, we are in Minnesota. You may not be in Minnesota, but we are in the frozen Hoth North. But our Alamo Draft House is in Woodbury, Minnesota. And they have watch parties that include the food. And they had the Downton Abbey watch party that they did where you could order off the menu. It was a feast. And I've done different Alamo Draft House parties. 9 to 5 was fun. And you got, I don't know if I lean over, you can see the cup of ambition up there. It's a coffee cup, which is part of the 9 to 5. You need your cup of ambition. And so that was one of the party favors they gave you when you went there. So they do great watch parties. Since we're talking about watch parties, I'm going to go into a little bit of what I've been doing. I have been isolating alone. And so what I have done a lot of this year is my own personal watch parties. Before this, I did a lot of road trips. When I was with AAA, I was on the road 200 nights a year. And so I did a lot of road trip type foods and that type of a watch party. Like, Thursday nights was, sometimes it was Tuesday, sometimes Thursday, sometimes Sunday, was Supernatural because they kept moving it around. and so I would have different foods that night when I was on the road. I would go and have, you know, the cheeseburger and the shaker salad and that kind of stuff. Um, so but now that I'm home, I've been doing these more thematic watch parties, and where I think that this is important for people, whether you're isolating alone or you are with someone, it can be date night or just date night with yourself, because it breaks up the monotony, especially if you're working from home, that every day is the same. So the idea is, pick a thing, put it on your calendar, pick a date. One of the first ones I did this year in lockdown is Agatha Christie. And I started with the episode with Peter Davidson, sorry, the vintage road trip episode where he goes to Agatha Christie's home. So that's kind of a Doctor Who, you know, tie-in. And then for happy hour, I did the Doctor Who tie-in episode with the Unicorn and the Wasp. Sorry, I was trying to think of what the name of it was. So that was during my happy hour. And then for dinner was Evil Under the Sun, that movie from the 70s with Maggie Smith, who is also in Harry Potter. So I made the food that was in the show. So I Googled it ahead of time, had all the ingredients, made that. The happy hour drinks were the cocktails that she served during that movie, got into the whole thing. I actually made it a weekend, because then I also it was the book I was reading at the time, which is Agatha Christie's The Grand Tour. It was her travels around the world. She went around the world with her first husband. And then I did the audiobook as well when I went and did my walking in the morning of the Hercule Poirot travels. So a couple of the other watch parties I've done, and this is also for Nick. I know that your wife, I think, is a Gilmore Girls fan, is right before quarantine. I was down in Arizona for a couple days between two conventions, one in LA and one in Hawaii, but I went to Phoenix in between instead of coming back home. And so we had a Gilmore Girls slumber party. And my friend, craftsy, and so she actually made us t-shirts. So the theme of our party, our slumber party, was Luke's. And so we did our favorite Luke episodes. We picked out, and then she also made the Dragonfly Inn t-shirt. So she made us t-shirts. So these are our t-shirts. And we did all the different foods that you would get at Luke's. And then we binged watched a whole bunch of Luke episodes. And then the next morning we did a charity 5K, which is Luke's None Plus 5, which is coffee. And so any Gilmore Girls fans out there will recognize that. And then one last one I want to talk about, and I think you have a slideshow after this that we'll do before we get into the toys. Actually, I have two. It's a good thing I have these, because I almost skipped one. So for Jaws watch party, movie Jaws, this was actually a gift that I gave someone for Christmas. So in here, what I did was, one of the movie theaters near me did curbside popcorn, takeout for curbside popcorn. So I grabbed that. I know there's nothing better than warm popcorn. And that's really kind of a council room thing too, because that was what I would go up to the con suite all the time, is to get that warm popcorn. So the movie came also, I had the little container, I got this at Target. And then these paper plates, again at Target. The paper plate is a big deal for a watch party, because it's $1.79, but it's $1.79 of joy. It's the littlest thing, but it's just something different that day, and it really demarks the difference between the days, because all the days are the same.
And you don't have to do dishes.
Yes,
not
exactly.
For those. And that's sort of a nice thing too, is that taking the burden off yourself when it comes to that, increasing enjoyment.
And then psych. So Psych can be just any given Thursday, because there's like so many good episodes. But again, these are all Target things, and Psych is all about the pineapple. So there's napkins, and there's the paper plates, and oh, these are my favorite paper plates, the big pineapple paper plate, which is great. This one actually is great for chips and dip, because you put the dip on this side and the chips on the other side. And then I have the little snack bags, of course, reusable, even though I'm, killing the earth with the paper plates. I have 2 compost sites out in back of my yard. So I'm trying to save the earth that way even though I'm doing those. But then the little snack bags, because Psych is good here in the winter when it's a Sunday and it's cold and it's snowing, and you can pull out your pineapple paper plate and watch like 6 episodes all Sunday afternoon of Psych, or Saturday afternoon or whatever, and it just gives you, it's fun. Or you can watch any of the movies. Did you want to show the slideshow real quick?
Absolutely. So here I'll have to. So Mary actually has quite a few very nice pictures of food that she's made.
So these are actually ones that my sister made, but they were for our social media feed. So that's Pie Day. And that's, of course, Christmas. Again, my sister made these, but I have the cookie cutters, and we can show that during the toy section. So this was our social media Christmas card. And this was for the Gilmore Girls slumber party. These actually were made. We actually had those made for the slumber party because it was down in Phoenix, but it was fun.
Awesome. Well, that's cool that you can get these made. Not everyone has to slave away over a hot oven or stove to have a good time.
And so this came right out of the Supernatural Cookbook. This is the shaker, the Health Quake shaker salad that Sam will order. And so this one I made for a picnic that I did, again, prior to quarantine.
And the last 2 pictures are mine. I just threw them in there just as more examples. So this is actually Molly's meatballs out of the Harry Potter cookbook. They just said serve over rice, steam some broccoli. And what was nice about it, I know that you weren't a big fan of it, is that they're still like it's an actual meatball recipe. It tastes like British meatballs. So take that as you may. I thought they were fine. Amber wasn't a big fan. It's got like you're looking at just the meatballs and sauce was like 2 whole onions, so it's onion. And then actually in Skyrim, the official Elder Scrolls cookbook, which incidentally is like my favorite cookbook of the fandom cookbooks that I have. It's just twice baked potatoes, but they're Nord twice baked potatoes. And so that's a good example of like, it's a fandom cookbook. It fits with the theme. They've given a little blurb about it, but it's a twice baked potato. It tells you how to do it. You got pictures. Turned out great.
So that one's more of a cookbook than here are recipes that were in the thing.
It's both, and that's why it's my favorite. Here, I can just take a break and show you that they'll have like in the Elder Scrolls, there's an iconic dish that are called sweet rolls.
Oh, okay.
And so they have these. Let's see. And so it's literally something in the game, but they actually show you how to do it too. And the reason this is my favorite cookbook is because it's got everything. It's got the maps that you see in the games. It's got big, pretty pictures, like grilled leeks. And then it's got step-by-step instructions. It even has, from the latest game, they had like a level bar. And so it actually shows difficulty in.
Oh yeah, that's cute.
And that's why it's my favorite. And I think like their garlic bread recipe, I don't know how I didn't realize it before, but the way to do really good garlic bread is take the bread and like you put your butter and spices on it, then you cook that for a while first to get it a little crunchy, and then you add the cheese and just somehow I just hadn't figured that out or seen it in any other recipe or podcast or video.
I will give you, I'm looking through the Harry Potter because I think the one thing I made was the birthday cake. I think it's in here. I'll give you a hint on garlic bread, what the restaurants do. They actually don't use butter, they use mayo. Because mayo has a lot of fat, plus it has a little tang to it. So they don't spread butter first, they spread mayo, and then you griddle that. And that will add a crunch layer, and then you put your cheese on it.
I've done grilled cheese so many times, and maybe it's coming to a con suite near you. We'll see. But like I've done it. I've done mayo. I've done butter. Do country crock and things like that. And I'm not a fan of the mayo. Plus, I used to work at Devani's, which is I would say Midwest.
Yep.
I used to work the hoagie, so they do put butter on there, but they also, I think it's like I can't remember if it's called like a salamander oven or something. Yep. I think folks are familiar with like Quiznos and places like that where it's like a conveyor belt, right, where you just like put the things in it, it toasts and it comes out the other side. Devani's doesn't mess with anything like that. Every hoagie is made with a little bit of pain because you just stick your hands in the oven and you pull out the burning stuff, and gloves are for wusses. And I used to work at the hoagie bar, and apparently I have very delicate hands, and I was always burning my hands and hurting and being sad about it. But I can't get enough of their hoagies. They're my favorite. But that's a really good tip for people because it's rich, it's flavorful. I've seen grilled cheese with mayonnaise.
It is tangy though. So if you don't really like that tangy flavor.
Oh, I can eat mayonnaise straight. I'm a monster. So I love mayo, but like if you try to use it for like a grilled cheese versus butter, it kind of has a fishy smell when it's like hitting the griddle. And so that's divisive. So mayonnaise on grilled cheese is sort of like pineapple on pizza, I would say, for a lot of people. But these are the road to Flavor Town is any way you want to take.
I actually like pineapple on pizza.
I love it. I can't get enough, even though it hurts my mouth.
The toys.
Oh, I love it. So I'm glad we're transitioning to that. And this kind of circles back to the sort of like theme versus kitschy.
Yes.
And do you want to start with the cups?
Sure.
Thank you. Just here, so I'll go first. So this is one of my favorite. So we both have a Doctor Who glass, and so I know that you've had some incidents with that one now.
So it's a teacup, but it's so thick that it's not conducive for actually drinking out of.
Versus, I don't want to say versus like it's your fault, but it's just it looked cool. I would have bought that. That would have been sitting in my house had I seen it.
It was a gift, and I've got a TARDIS cookie jar behind me, which I don't put cookies in it. I have other stuff in it. I have a tea Earl Grey hot. It's kind of shiny, so I can't, and then it's a Star Trek thing, which I actually use this for functional. I use this for my teas. And then, so there's functional versus not functional. And
so like functional, like this is like, it looks great. Like it's clearly Doctor Who, but it's dishwasher safe. It's microwave safe. It is themed, but anyone can use this like a regular coffee mug or tea mug.
And I have a collection of cookie cutters because I have nephews that had to give me gifts. And so, but I think one of the best ones for Doctor Who, if we just go with Doctor Who, there is Doctor Who cookie cutters. There's a TARDIS and there's a sonic screwdriver. They don't release very well. They're not the best cookie cutters. This is ice cube trays. This is actually better, more functional. I'm trying to do this so you can see how thick this is. It's great for ice cubes, but it's even better for chocolate molds. If you're doing like Easter candy, these are Daleks up the top. And so they make really cool. I also use these for Rice Krispie bars because, again, I do a lot of road trips, and Rice Krispie bars are the best thing on a road trip.
We have that exact same mold, and it's awesome. And
Yes.
silicone molds are really nice too because they release so easily, and they're naturally nonstick. You don't have to grease them up too much. It still helps a little bit.
The next one I have is they're sandwich cutters. They actually came in a lunchbox, and I use different lunch boxes to keep my my cookie cutters, not my sandwich cutters, but these are sandwich cutters. This is awesome to make sandwiches from because it's nice and big. The TIE Fighter, not so much because it just, you don't get much sandwich with this. These though are fabulous to use to cut Rice Krispie bars. This one actually packages a little bit better if you're taking them somewhere, but if you're just doing like a party, this works fine for Rice Krispie bars, but also if you make shortbreads, these are good for those. The other cookie cutters that I have is zombies, and these are fine, even though the arms will break off, but zombies' arms break off anyways.
That's the first part you eat off a cookie anyways.
Yeah. If you want to make fandom cookies that are actually going to ship, Wilke and Sonoma are the best cookie cutters because they are the shape of a cookie. They, although this one has a little thing up here that breaks off, and sometimes Yoda's ears break off. But these, the Millennium Falcon and the Death Star and Darth Vader and the Stormtrooper, they actually stay together when you ship them. So the Wilke and Sonoma ones, I think, are the best. And I think that also goes back to like what we were talking about with the cookie or with the cookbooks. This is an actual cooking company, and the cookbooks that are made by actual cookbook people are better. And so, you know, these, I have some, and I have Firefly cookie cutters as well that came from Think Geek, and they're not as good because they're not a cookie cutter company. They don't, you know, make cookie cutters. So
I think we were both of a mind that Think Geek is more of the kitschy side of things and less of the official, both when they're like officially licensed by the company, then what they're putting out represents that property, that brand, and that company. Mm-hmm. And so they tend to, it's not, you know, it's not always the case, just like stuff that's not officially cooking companies don't always put out junk. It's just for the most part. So
yeah. And then one of my favorite ones I got at a con is a shot glass that says Han shot first. Because again, you know, a little bit of subtle nerd on this one. I'm going to talk a little bit about my favorite souvenir. So, and I know your wife is going soon to, as soon as it opens back up, to Star Wars Land, Batu, the Galaxy's Edge. So these are coasters that came from Olga's Canteen. Olga's Canteen, there's no L, sorry, I mispronounced that. You can get a set of these from them. You just ask the bartender when you place your order, can I get a set of coasters? And you could just, they're free. And so coasters are one of my favorite things. I have Hoovian Running Club, which is a little bit of Gallifreyan on it. So that's a coaster. Leaky Cauldron, oops, upside down, sorry. Which is kind of a fun coaster because other than at, although this one I actually got from Leaky Con, not the Leaky Cauldron in Universal. It's fun because it's something that doesn't actually exist except for at a theme park. So it is a souvenir from your, you know, fictitious trip that you sort of took. Same thing with Vulcan Ale, that coaster. But for a real one, fans out there, I did go to the Family Business Beer Company tap room, had fabulous tacos. They had a really good food truck there. And of course we had the beer. And I had the Cosmic Cowboy, which is in the show. And so these, again, coasters are free. So I think coasters are one of the best free souvenirs, plus subtle nerd. So when you have your non-nerd friends over, they really don't get the supernatural part of this. And they really may not quite notice that this is not written in English. So it's that subtle thing, you know, kind of type of stuff that's kind of fun.
Those are really good confluence for, you know, the fandoms and the food, because, and it's nice when you can go somewhere and you don't have to do the cooking, and it's still like I've been to the Leaky Cauldron at Universal. They got good food, or at least
it is good food. Yeah,
good to me. Like it was still British, but it was British and good.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of confluence, I have one other thing I have to actually turn and reach, so I apologize for all those people. This is one of my most prized possessions. It says on it in Italian, Walker of the Sky. And so Skywalker Ranch, George Lucas's property, has its own vineyard, and it's on the land. They also have an olive grove, and they sell the wines and the olive oil, and it is empty because I did drink it. It is this one was a Merlot, Skywalker Ranch Merlot. So for the Star Wars fan, what is better than drinking the wine made from grapes that breathed the same air as George Lucas? And actually, in this particular wine, because this was a while ago, this was when he still lived there, because he doesn't live there now. But this was when he still lived there. So he was very involved in it. And the interesting thing was also at that time, this wine was, the grapes were grown on Skywalker Ranch, but the wine was actually made by Francis Ford Coppola. So kind of, because the two of them have been friends forever, and they started American Zoetrope together back during the American Graffiti days. And during the Godfather days was their company, American Zoetrope. So Walker of the Sky. So there are ways of doing the fandom food and drinks and all of that that can be authentic and not kitschy. It also can be subtle, because you can have a dinner party with friends that are non-nerds, as well as your friends that are nerds. And the non-nerds don't need to know that they're drinking Skywalker Ranch. Although all of my friends that are watching this right now that are method fandom are screaming at the screen, how dare I serve Skywalker Ranch Merlot to someone who does not understand what Skywalker is. That's as one person would put it, a waste of good wine is to give that to someone who doesn't understand what Skywalker is. But still, I mean, we have to be honest that we do have non-nerd friends, and they may not necessarily, if they're, even though we're having a theme party, you know, they may not go on all on fandom. So, which kind of circling back to what we talked, I was just checking the time, what we talked about with the novelty versus theme, or the functional versus kitschy. I think the one book that you pulled up, which was the Wookie cookies, I really think that was meant for a 5-year-old, or it was meant for us to make for a 5-year-old. And that is where, and I, you know, this could be a panel all in itself, is some of the marketing people in the world tend to think that all nerds are somewhat juvenile in our beliefs, maybe. And what I like about some of the ones that you showed, especially the Elder Scrolls, it is embracing the fandom, not mocking it.
Exactly.
And I think I think to a certain extent, a lot of the Star Wars cookbooks almost get to the point of mocking the nerdum, whereas the Skywalker Ranch wine is in no way at all mocking, to the fact that he refers to it as Walker of the Sky in Italian. So there is that kind of difference too between the kitschy and the functional. You were nice in mentioning that it was kitschy. I think it's mocking in a lot of ways.
That's true. Yeah, I would agree. And I just want to like build off of what you're saying. Like I could see a lot of people getting upset for serving Skywalker wine to somebody who's not a super fan, but at the same time, my main beef with a lot of these, and the reason why I like something like, you know, the Elder Scrolls cookbook so much, is that even though it's fandom based, even though the grapes breathe the same air as George Lucas, it's still a good wine. You can still serve it to people who aren't fans who aren't fans, and it tastes fine. It tastes like wine. I can serve anything out of this cookbook. You know, Amber doesn't have to have played through Morrowind, through Oblivion, through Skyrim to eat a twice baked potato. You know, right. Maybe she doesn't know what Nord seasoning means, but if it tastes good, it tastes good. And for me, I love those games. I love the world. I love this cookbook. I do like me some twice baked potatoes. I like Nord seasoning. I like sweet rolls. But at the end of the day, like you gotta be able to eat. Everyone eats. But we can have more fun with it. It gives us something to look forward to. It gives us a date night. It gives us an end goal.
And I think too, there's a difference between kitschy and mocking foods versus cutesy fun cocktail names, where that's where I think is completely different, where I don't have a problem with someone having a fun cocktail name, because that's what cocktails should be. They should be fun. And so, and we actually have a couple minutes. We can talk a little bit about cocktails too, if we want. And of course, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. By the way, I should mention, as being someone who evaluates restaurants for a living for more than a couple decades, do not read Restaurant at the End of the Universe while you're in a restaurant, because you will never, ever order a steak again after having sat there and read that. Which
I remember that now. This part of me is really great.
And I will admit, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is my favorite book. And of course, there's cocktails in that, and there's plenty of restaurant references to that book as well. And there's a lot of fun cocktails. Oh, I have a shot glass too from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is the little thumbs up. And if I'm making the Pan Galactic Gargle
Blaster,
yes, I do actually use this to measure things out with. I have to do that. I do also have the etched glass for, I got to put it over here so you can see it, Mos Eisley Cantina, Tatooine. So that's fun. Oh, I have other ice cube back here.
And just while you're grabbing them too, just wanted to show, before I forgot, just tailing back to like official cookbooks license thing. This is another one from Disney. And not only is it cookbooks, but it's actually like an entire party prep. So it's like 2 weeks before, get this ready. 1 week before, get this ready. And so that's another fun thing to do. I would be remiss if I didn't mention things like the little like tea sandwiches for Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, nice. This is a Death Star ice cube mold for cocktails. However, for those of you that at Christmas time this year, it was all about the hot cocoa bombs. You can actually make a hot cocoa bomb in this by painting the inside with chocolate, and then you fill it, and then you put it in the glass, and you pour over the hot milk or the hot water, and then it melts and it reveals all the stuff inside. You can make it in this. It's not easy. You could just buy one, but they're more expensive to buy the hot cocoa bombs than to make it, but still. So you can do that. Otherwise, this is awesome ice cube for drinks. This one I do more for, it's okay for drinks, except for it's a little morbid. This one is great for Easter candy, and it is Han Solo and carbonite. So if you put chocolate in it, it kind of really actually does look. These are fun ice cubes. And then of course, I've got the R2D2s. These are also good chocolate molds, especially if you're going to do something in the middle of the chocolate for Easter. But these are actually my favorite ice cubes for cocktails, and they're little spaceship saucers. You can see there.
Oh, that's cool.
And these are actually nice ice cubes. They pop out because it's silicone. I use this just on my everyday ice cubes. But when you're doing themed cocktails, these are great to have the little spaceship saucer floating in the cocktail.
I noticed that those silicone molds are just really good for a lot of stuff. And I just find myself using like a lot of silicone, like they have like the baking sheets, so you don't have to keep using parchment paper. And those are really good. They even have like just a silicone like pan. It's just like a big pan, and you can use those for baking anything. Those are really nice.
Although usually with those, because they're floppy, you have to have like another pan underneath.
Yeah, you don't want to, you can bake something in it, but if you're going to do something like a cake and it needs to be a certain shape, either make it bigger so you can slice off the bits, or just you need to bake something in it that you don't really care if it comes out pretty.
So to go on a little bit more about the watch parties, if you're creating a watch party, I already showed the Luke's t-shirts. I have a couple other ones here. So Lord of the Rings. This is food based because it says it's dark ale. Nice. Sauron's dark ale. So, and then for your psych watch parties, of course, pineapple t-shirt with little pineapples, or sometimes I even go as far as to put on the pineapple Hawaiian shirt to go with, of course, my pineapple paper plates.
Watch parties are really nice now because a lot of these services like Hulu's doing it, and like I think HBO Max does it. Just most of them now have like a watch party feature, so you can all. It's not like, wait, we gotta start it at this time. It's actually built into it. We all watch it at the same time, and so that's really nice too, that we can all sync up together.
And for the people that are tuning in, that are maybe not the greatest cooks, or maybe aren't experienced in cooking and baking, one thing that they can do for these watch parties is have food delivered, but just kind of go with the theme. That's the point of doing, the fandom cooking, is you're really kind of going with a theme. And so again, like with the Jaws, I did curbside popcorn at the movie theater, and that helped support that movie theater. And for Supernatural, for the last episode, the season finale, I did take out cheeseburgers from my favorite cheeseburger place here, the Gnome. And so it supports the local economy, as well as supporting that theme kind of thing. Although I have to say that I enjoy making my own food, but sometimes you can do that as well. I think we're right about at the point where we should probably start wrapping up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that don't feel pressured that if you can't make an elaborate 3-tiered cake from your favorite Disney princess movie, then you can't have a fandom watch party. You can't have themed food. It's mostly just about what makes you feel closer to your fandom.
And even though we made the Doctor Who cookies, the Gilmore Girls cookies we had made. So you can special order, as well. But also the Supernatural cookbook, a lot of the stuff in there is very easy to make. Again, the shaker salad was just layered, so there's levels. So for the novice cook, some of the fandom cookbooks are fine, like again, the Supernatural, but for the elaborate cook and the more experienced ones, you have the Downton Abbey cookery, which would be incredible feasts for that. Speaking of feasts, do you want to talk a little bit about your videos that you're doing for Council Room for the Consuite?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there's been some events leading to us not being able to gather in person, but I'm not sitting idle during this time. I still want to provide some sort of food related experience for our con attendees. And so I've actually been making cooking videos, and I've been doing a lot of the staples, so like the pizza and the grilled cheese. And I've been trying to get it. I'm learning how to make a pretty cooking video, so bear with me, but I wanted to show everyone both how I make them at the con, and so you can recreate that for yourself, and then also the fancier fun versions that you can do in the comfort of your own home. And so those will be coming up, or those will be available by the time you see this.
All right, great. So we want to, first of all, thank everyone for joining us. In addition to your cooking videos, are you doing any other panels?
I'm not doing any other panels right now, but right now when we're recording, we still got a little bit of time before the convention itself. But I do plan to be Discord. I took a bunch of days off because I can, and so I plan to be around, maybe even just hanging out in the channel, cooking stuff while people have way more interesting conversations around me, to really get that con-suite experience of me doing chores in the background while they have a good time being, frankly, way smarter than me, discussing way more interesting topics, and I just get to be the wallflower.
Yeah, but it's a great place for people who watch this channel can then find you there to ask you questions. Same as me, I will be on Discord for a few different things. I actually have a couple of other panels that I'm doing for Council Room 2021 this year. I have Distance Conning, making your virtual con feel more real, which we're going to talk a little bit about how to make your panel or make your experience feel more 3D, more 4D, to get more into it instead of just staring at a screen. Staying fit and nerdy while staying at home, which again is, yes, exactly. Road trip supernatural style, which will involve food, of course, and travel. Navigating nerdy events in the virtual age, which is about how this is a great time to be a nerd with all the things that are going on virtually, but it also can be overwhelming, and how to kind of narrow it down and being okay with the fact that you missed something because you found out today that it occurred yesterday. And then traveling with the doctor, which is, I think, a Discord conversation. And then, of course, don't forget to stop by the virtual vending area. I will be there as well. And there's two ways of doing that, or the Council Room website itself, as well as in the Discord channel. I think it's called a channel, right? Discord channel.
I'm really bad at Discord, so I believe it's a channel as well.
And when we started the panel, you may have heard, I'm not sure if it's going to get cut, but you may have heard a little bit of Maury Gold's Clara's Diner from the scene with Capaldi. And so the Wayward Nerd, we put together a Spotify playlist for Council Room. And the idea behind that is just something that, and it's for Council Room 2021, because we do specific ones for the conventions that we do. It's just something that I listen to in between and before to get ready and to get excited and things that make me think of the convention. And so we are sharing those this year on Spotify. And for more information about Wayward Nerd and all things travel nerdy, go to our website at www.waywardnerd.com.
All right, thanks, Mary. And yeah, so I'll be around. We'll be around. So laugh hard, run fast, and be kind. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.